you check the Zoom thing just to see? Zoom people on the internet, there are a few of you. Let us know if you can hear stuff. You're not going to be able to see me because I can't remove the camera while I'm speaking at the same time, but they get to see the slides, and that's more important. But otherwise, everybody here can hear me, I assume, because we have a fancy mic set up, which is very helpful. Thank you everybody for coming. This is the first ever actual in-person SydAR we've ever had. Hopefully it's the first of many, many that we have, with many different random demos and speakers and stuff like that. But welcome. Before I do anything else, I want to say a very big thank you both to EyeJack for managing to organize all of this madness, because having a venue is actually the most important thing for an in-person event, and we had a while of kind of asking many, many different venues, and EyeJack were the only ones who could help us with the City Knowledge Hub. So thank you, EyeJack. Thanks to the Knowledge Hub. Hopefully it's a good venue for everybody. Let us know. You can all message me. I'm Patrick, by the way. I'll introduce myself slightly later. I'm less important, but for now. This is all thanks to them having actual venue. And thank you to Mary as well, one half of the Reality Crafters, for helping run all the demos, because I couldn't do it while I was setting up everything else. So if everybody enjoyed those demos, they're largely thanks to Mary, running all the demos on her own. So thank you, Mary. All right, we are recording, so people on Zoom, I mean, you could have your camera on or not. Most of us can't see you anyways. And anybody else who is here, you may end up on recordings. There's a camera there, so if you're trying to avoid being seen, just don't walk in front of the camera, and you'll be okay. If you do want to share stuff on social media to show everybody that you're here, hashtag SydAR is the way to do it. If you have questions, if you want to start chatting about stuff, and you prefer the social media way, you can do it through SydAR as well. So what's happening? Well, we have a lot going on. You've already enjoyed the Arrival and AR demos. We've already wrapped them up. I'm going to give a very speed round of introducing what we're doing here and some quick AR news. We've got a little bit of jobs and opportunities for anybody who's looking to get involved in the AR community a bit more, if you'd like to be employed in it. Then we've got our two talks. We've got Lukasz from EyeJack, then we've got a 10-minute break, and then we have Oliver from Contxtual. And they've got a whole lot of very interesting and useful information to share with you all. It may seem like there's not a lot going on in Sydney with AR, and that it always sounds like it's the Americans doing all the fancy stuff. But we actually have a lot going on here, which is why we're running these meetups, so everybody can actually start seeing all the cool stuff that we're doing. So, what are we? What is SydAR? SydAR is basically me trying to bring all these disparate folks from all around Sydney together. So we were sort of all like independent islands, where there's lots going on, but everybody's sort of separate. There's like some people off doing things in Penrith. There are some people off doing things on the Central Coast. There are some people off in, Sydney Knowledge Hub, just randomly doing things, but none of us are really talking to each other. We've got, a literal representative working in Godot who is doing stuff with VR and AR, literally making a game engine do the magic, and we literally aren't here talking to them because everybody was all separated out. So I figured we really needed a way to bring everyone together so that we can all support each other, learn from each other, and just kind of get involved. It's way more fun doing it together than the eternal everybody being alone during COVID. So, thank you for being here and helping fix that. I'm not going to go through every one of these, but it's pretty much just a new community for anyone interested in augmented reality. You don't have to work in the industry, you can just be curious. You can just really want to know about augmented reality and see what everyone's doing. But I do want to collect every single person. So if you do know somebody who's not here who doesn't know about the events, get them to join the Meetup group, because it would be really nice to have just everybody who could potentially like AR to be able to kind of get involved and see what's going on. That's me. I am Patrick Tanzariti, otherwise known as PatCat for short, because that name is long. I'm the head of engineering at Nova Entertainment, the radio station, and we do a lot of stuff that is not AR related just yet, but I hope to slowly weasel my way into getting them to do AR stuff at the same time. But I'm also one half of the Reality Crafters, which is an AR duo that I do with my wife Mary, which you would have all met earlier running the tech demos. That's my email, if anybody wants to email with questions, if you're trying to get into AR stuff and you don't really feel comfortable coming up and asking in person. I think it's also on the Meetup group, so if you just look in the instructions for each Meetup, I generally try and share it everywhere I can. But if you do need to get in touch with anything, it's the easiest way to get in touch with me, really. I'm also on Twitter, if anybody uses that platform still, that Patrick guy, but I understand if you don't. I actually haven't logged in for several days. That was me back when we used to have events. I don't know how many people, I think it was Academy XI, which I think there was one person that I was speaking to who would have been at that event back then. And that was me showing off the Meta 1 developer headset. That was before Facebook took the name Meta. There actually was a company that had a lot of Sydney-based people building an augmented reality headset. And that was me kind of showing it off and showing a little cat that I had made. It was a virtual cat in AR. So it's been a while, but that's what we're trying to get back, is this sort of stuff. Having everyone together, getting to see cool stuff. All right, I'm gonna skip over and let our fancy resident person who knows all about jobs in AR come forward and introduce themselves, because I don't have any jobs for anybody.
Thank you very much. Cheers. Hi everyone, I'm Graham from EF Digital. We're a digital recruitment company in Sydney that focus on spatial computing, AR, VR and 3D. So just quickly I wanted to talk about a couple of roles that we're currently recruiting for, and I'm not sure if there's any hiring managers here tonight who are looking for people, but we've got a couple of great candidates I also wanted to just talk through. First of all, we've got a great C++ Unreal role working for a VR health tech for a senior software engineer. That's a Sydney-based role, but it can also be done remotely. That one's about 150 up to 180k, so looking for a pretty senior guy for that one there. We've also got a AR developer role in Melbourne. This one is for a training innovation lab, somebody who's got some strong AR foundation experience. This is a contract role that can also be done remotely if needed, paying about $650 a day, that one there. A couple of candidates just to talk to you about. We've got a fantastic full stack dev who's got really strong Unity C# experience. This candidate has delivered both VR and AR simulation projects. They've worked extensively with Unity assets. They're Sydney based, looking for about 130k or about $700 a day. And finally, the last cab off the ranks, we've got a really good 3D artist who's just finished a project through us. They've designed and modeled environment and character assets, good Unity and Unreal background, good strong Blender and Maya skills for about $400 a day or about 80k plus super. So, as I said, if there's anybody who's either looking for work or looking for candidates, then I'd love to talk to you further. I am on LinkedIn, and I guess I should have had something with my contact details on, but we'll do that next time. Cool, all the best. Cheers. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Graham. And Graham gets a very big shout out because he was one of the first people to actually reach out, even when the meetup was really, really small, looking to help people out. So people like Graham are actually very, very useful because you never know where your first opportunity is going to come, and it's actually really, really hard to work out where you go to even get an augmented reality job. So having someone like that is pretty valuable. So try and link up with him on LinkedIn. Even if you don't think you need it right now, he might be able to help you one day. All right, speed round because we are running late, but hopefully the demos were worthwhile and we don't mind too much because you can look up the news later yourself. So I'll just kind of give you the quick rundown. We had the NREL glasses over there. Their company was renamed to be XREAL, but they've got a new little device. That device there can connect to their newer headsets, which let you charge your phone, because you technically plug in your phone to the XREAL headset, while you're using AR. So that would sound like a common sense thing that you'd want just in general, but it wasn't a thing until now. So most people were using their headsets and then their phone would run out of battery and they would be sad. And now it will not be running out of battery anymore. The Apple Vision Pro, which I'm sure almost everybody here knows what that is by this point, it may be released this year. That is the hope, that is the rumor. There have been a bunch of job listings in Australia, China, and Japan, which is a good sign that Apple are trying to hire a few people to showcase that in their stores. So maybe we'll all get to enjoy it. Only a few people in this room, maybe even just one, owns an Apple Vision Pro at the moment. The monocle, if anybody was around earlier and they were playing with that really tiny monocle device that I had with me, that was made by Brilliant Labs. And this is their new extension of that. It's basically one side of it has the monocle style AR display, which is a little bit like a Google Glass. And then the other side is just like a regular pair of glasses. But it is way thinner and smaller. It's open source. So if you wanted to make your own, you could. All the schematics are all online. You could go and 3D print a pair of these and then find all the parts. But you can also pre-order one if you'd like to do it without needing to kind of go through all the hassle. It's really cool if you're looking for something that is a nice little kind of prototype that you can showcase. It's much more around kind of having heads-up display text and small images. It won't do things like the Apple Vision Pro or anything crazy like that yet, but it could be cool for like daily use, just to have a little display, like the Google Glass days of old. That's sort of what the schematics looks like. I don't understand them, but if anybody here does, you can look them up later and enjoy. And this is their fancy promo video. I figured that was a way easier way of showing you generally what it looks like in their very Apple style promo video. You can get prescription lenses if you're somebody like me who already wears glasses. It does have a camera in it, so it can recognize objects in front of it. It can look up things online using AI. It can do all sorts of cool stuff. So it's generally a good way of looking at what's the future going to be like of living with augmented reality. And that's probably one of the more reasonable, I guess, demos of what it's likely going to look like when we start seeing this around in public. If anybody makes Snapchat filters, we've got new sponsored AR filters. So it's a way of making a AR filter for Snapchat where after the filter's been used, you can have a little ad placement at the end where you can kind of swipe and give somebody a call to action to go to a web page or something else. Only really useful if you're working with other companies and businesses and you're trying to make them an augmented reality filter, but it is good to know and relatively easy to find if anybody wants to kind of try and do something like that, rather than just making an AR filter which sort of gives, I guess, an idea about a company. You can now take them to specific campaign pages and things like that. That's sort of what it looks like at the moment in their kind of demos, is having sort of like a way to buy tickets to an event or showcase how long it's going to take till the event is there, that sort of stuff. All right, and with that, that's my speed round of AR news. I'll let Lukasz come and get started, and we'll have like a really short break where you can all talk amongst yourselves until Lukasz gets on. Thanks, everyone.
No, I'm good.
You're good? I was trying to escape anyways.
Hello, everyone. My name is Lukasz Karluk. I'm the co-founder and technical director of EyeJack. We also work here at the Sydney Knowledge Hub. We just moved in about a month ago, and they were nice enough to actually lend us this space for tonight, and I think it might be available for future meetups as well. So that's nice of them. So my background is I'm a creative technologist. So I do a lot of tinkering, prototyping. Been playing around with AR for about 10 years or so. For the last 2 years, I've been getting heavily involved in WebXR, and so I thought I'd just share some of my knowledge that I've sort of picked up over the last 2 years and give you some technical insights into WebXR and how it all works. And just before I get into that, I also just want to introduce EyeJack, the company. We're an art and technology company. So we create experiences. We specialize in a bunch of different things. Augmented reality is one of them. We create immersive installations, games, and we also work in a Web3 space. So there's another person, the co-founder of EyeJack, his name's Sutu, he's based in LA. And so we have the Sydney office and the LA office, and then a bunch of other people working around Australia. We also have a network of coders and animators around the world. And we build tools for creators. So we love working with artists and creators and bringing communities together to create tools. Here's just some quick examples of the sort of work that we've done in the past. So big AR on top of buildings. This one's a mural, AR mural in Artscape in Sweden. This one's called Artificial Ecology. This one was built with on top of 8th Wall using WebXR. It's basically like a really abstract sound sculpture game. So you can walk around. It's also multiplayer, so multiple people can play at the same time. You walk around with your phone and you poke these things. They fly around creating different sounds, and when they connect, they make different sounds. So it's just like a very playful, no purpose, just experience. Some recent work that we've just released at the Music Centre in LA. So we've got an augmented reality sculpture that flies around the plaza, and also from our prosthetic reality collection, we've got these large prints which are augmented reality artworks on the walls and on the stands there. We also work quite a lot with councils, galleries and museums, so we do a lot of heritage work. So heritage interpretation, bringing AR components to sites of importance. And this is another example of the work that we do with in tourism. And this AR, we call them panels because they're sort of flat panels that sort of float around. So this is created with our tools that we will give to creators. Anyway, so let's get into WebXR. As a studio production company, what's really appealing about WebXR to us is that it's a technology that's potentially reduces the amount of work that you have to do. So it works across desktop, mobile, and headset. So you got all those devices that you have to build once using JavaScript, and then you can also create these experiences and reuse a lot of the code. So that's really great. Also, the fact that you can sort of go around the app stores, because if you have to sort of build for the Quest or the Apple Vision Pro, you have to go through these hurdles of getting apps approved, and it's a really trying process sometimes. It takes quite a lot of time. So with WebXR, you get pretty much native sort of quality AR tracking, and you just deploy it to the web, up on the server, and everyone can access it. So that's what's great about it. What is it? So it's a web standard designed to make VR and AR experiences accessible through the web. The WebXR device API is being designed and developed by the Immersive Web Working Group with the World Wide Web Consortium. So it's a proper web standard. It's like people at Apple and Meta, so they're engineers, brainstorming all the time and refining these standards. They have privacy on top of the mind as well, so that with AR, it's actually we're kind of moving into like a bit of a dangerous area as well, because giving the web your access to your camera and allowing people to access these experiences, there's a lot of data that can be collected. So they're being extra careful about how they open up these standards so that they're not being taken advantage of. And the one thing about it being a web standard, so once it does get accepted, it's really, really hard to remove it, right? So these features are in beta, so to speak, for quite a long time, in draft, until they get accepted. And pretty much after that point, they stay. So the way WebXR works is, it's the same thing as WebGL. So WebGL is a custom sort of 3D graphics that you can put on a web page. Under the hood in a browser, so a browser like the Chrome browser on an Android and on the Quest, what it does is basically it uses AR Core underneath as a bottom layer, and then you build your experiences on top of that with WebGL. And it's also compatible with WebGPU, which is another standard that's coming out and becoming more widely adopted. And also it's a replacement for WebVR. So WebVR was another standard, but it's gone now. It's been around for quite some time. and this one, WebXR, is the one that's been superseding it. There's a lot of words there, so I just break it up some visuals and just to show you what kind of cool things people are making. What I personally love about WebXR, especially on the Quest, is the pass-through. And these sort of type of experiences that you can create really, really easily, right? So in this video, you can see that the walls being being scanned. So I think this person, what they've done is they got the geometry from another app and then imported it in. But what you get for free with WebXR is the ability to, once you scan your room with the Quest, you get access to those planes, the wall planes and the floor planes, so you can create these sort of like, physics-based experiences. The other video there is of the Apple Vision Pro running WebXR. So Mr. Doob being pretty happy about the fact that he got it running, tested it, all the 3GS examples were working fine with no added changes. So that's kind of the promise of WebXR, that you build once, and as long as all these other devices stick to the standard and implement it correctly, everything should work across all of them all the time. And the other cool thing, I think, I'm a big fanboy of the Quest, just because there's a very strong feature parity between it and native apps. So, what you can do on the web with the Quest is very much the same as what you can do in the native app. So you get depth data. So that video on the right there, where the balls are going through the walls, to have that sort of effect, you need the depth data from the headset or from the device. And then you can do those sort of cool effects as if things going through walls, interacting with a real physical environment. And that sort of gives those experiences a much deeper sense of immersion when you can do that. So it's great. So WebXR is one thing, but I also just want to bring up what other things are around WebXR that kind of do what WebXR does, and point out some of the downsides of those. So there's Apple Quick Look and Android Scene Viewer. So these are basically formats that just run on your device. Like the IKEA apps, where you can just sort of drag and drop a 3D model from the website and then it sort of appears in your living room. It's basically that. So those are great, and they're great for those sort of purposes when you just want to drop something into your, just visualizing your space. But they only there's a small level of interactivity, so you can't do custom shaders, custom lighting. You can position them, you can scale them. There's little hotspots you can tap for more information. And there's actions you can trigger, but it's that's pretty much where it stops. So if you were trying to build a custom experience, then it's a bit tricky. You just hit a roadblock. Also, there's a bit of fragmentation there with Apple supporting USDZ format and Android GLTF. So there's doubling up of work for the developer to create experiences for both those formats. There's also WebAR. So the big player in that field is 8th Wall, and we as a studio, we use 8th Wall all the time. It's great. It's good because it's you can just click into an experience and just works pretty much straight away. But biggest difference between WebAR, 8th Wall, and WebXR is that 8th Wall, they don't have access to the native layer. They don't have access to the AR core underneath the hood. So they have to basically try to replicate what AR core does. And it takes a lot of processing power. And you're running this in the browser tab. So by the end of it, they take up something like 80% of the processing power, giving you 20% left over for the actual creative content, which is it's not much to work with. And it's you get to you can't really do that much creatively with WebAR. But the fact is that we do a lot of client work, and clients want WebAR. They don't want native apps. Nobody wants to download an app. So always, they just want people to click a link. It takes them to an AR experience. So that's why WebAR kind of works. That's why it exists. But WebXR is the better alternative in my opinion. To make WebXR experiences, you got lots of different libraries: 3JS, Babylon, Blake Canvas. Unity also, you can export to WebGL, so which means it can also support WebXR. We're doing a project at the moment in Unity, which is exporting out to WebXR. So any WebGL game engine is compatible, and most libraries will support WebXR. So the support on headsets is really good. The MetaQuest, I think they're sort of leading the bunch. They're doing like really amazing work in terms of feature parity with the native support for the AR features on the MetaQuest. There's also Apple Vision Pro. So WebXR is behind a feature flag, which means that you can't just run a WebXR experience. You have to go into settings and click experimental and click, I don't know, something else. Anyway, it comes on and it starts working after that point. But I've sort of hidden it, and hopefully when the release comes out maybe later this year, then it will be available. But the looks of it, I think it will be. And we're also seeing WebXR being used in AR glasses as well, such as the X-Real. So yeah, it's being widely adopted. So this is what WebXR looks like support-wise on mobile. On Android, it's fantastic. You've got Chrome, which is the main browser for Android, Samsung browser, and there's Opera. So that's 90%. Like you're going to get 9 out of 10 users being able to run WebXR. On Apple, there's like zero support, right? So that's a massive hurdle for WebXR on Apple. But we do have a solution, which I'll show you guys in a couple of slides how that works. So on Chrome, this is the different features. So while tracking is like when you just drop things into the real world, it's kind of like the standard bread and butter stuff for AR. That's been around since 2019, so it's pretty mature. Most devices will be able to support that. Hit test is when you tap the phone and then it shoots out like a magical ray and sort of tells you where that ray landed in the real world. So that's been in there since 2020. DOM overlay is when you put HTML content over the WebXR view. There's anchors, depth data, so that's been around since 2021. Lighting estimation, so these are 3 years old. Raw camera access, it's been around for a year and a half, which means you can get access to the camera pixels. That means that you can do further things like scanning a QR code, running custom library, other computer vision tasks on top of WebXR. So, sky segmentation, object detection, all those sort of things can run on WebXR, with WebXR. And there's a bunch of other features that are in draft but haven't been implemented, so by Chrome. So these other features like plane detection and image tracking, these have been, these web standards exist, but it's up to the browser to implement them. So sometimes it takes a while, and yeah. Cool, so this is our solution for WebXR on iOS, right? So basically what it is we've created a little app called an app clip. An app clip you don't have to download from an app store. It's like a press of a link, you press it and it launches. But it is a native app, right? And it's also attached to another app that's in the App Store. So we attach it to the EyeJack app. But the whole process, the UX of it is pretty seamless. Like you just tap it and you get a full screen camera view, and then off you go. So what we've sort of created is this this way of launching WebXR on iPhone devices, iOS devices. And so we got a play page. That's the link up there, play.eyejackxyz. And you basically you copy and paste your WebXR link that works on Android. And it generates a QR code, and what it does is just redirects that to the iOS app, so that it's when for an end user, if you're on site somewhere, like you go, oh, what's this, and I'll get my phone out and scan this, it's going to be seamless. So it just takes them to the right place. So it takes them to the app clip. On Android, it just keeps them where they are. So it's just a work around that. So yeah, it's a polyfill solution with an app clip for WebXR and iOS. Yeah, that's what an app clip looks like. It's kind of like you can dress it up how you like it as well. So it's a little card that pops up from the bottom, and yeah, you go to a page, and if you got and if it has an app clip support through this play page, then you just press play and it launches. So it's pretty straightforward. Cool. So this is, I'll go into now like what we've been using WebXR for. So we've done all this work, we've created the play page. It all sort of ties into the sort of bigger ecosystem that we're building called EyeJack X. So just our company name with an X on the end of it. What we're doing with this is we're creating tools for creators to create WebXR content. We just launched it, we launched an MVP as of last week, a working version. And the very first format that we've created was this cube. And we engaged 20 or 25 different artists to create their content for the cube. So that's what these cubes look like in the wild. This is a gallery that we've got on the website. Just to show you, a cube is like it's a six-dimensional. Well, obviously, but it's a six-sided shape. Each side is a face it's like a portal to inside the cube. You can sort of configure the faces to be like in this one. There's like 3 faces showing the same content. This one's got 1 face showing different type of content. So you can configure the cube however you want. And so we had a bunch of artists create different content with it. So we've built the tools, like the editor for them to drop their content into. And then we build everything else around it. So we build the WebXR support, the players, all that sort of stuff. So that's the gallery. That's what it looks like on desktop. And then when you bring it into AR, you have these. You can scale your cube up. We sort of see these as objects. They're kind of collectible. They're contained as well. So they're like a piece of virtual furniture. So you can sort of I can sort of see this when AR glasses take over. However long that's going to take. People come home and they want to see some of these collectible objects that they're proud of. So there's going to be the real layer and then also the virtual layer of your home, and outdoors as well. What's cool about these objects as well, they can scale up, so they can be like tabletop experiences, or they can be much larger. You can scale them up so they have a bit more presence, and you can also walk into them as well. So they're like a room, and you can be teleported into another environment. This is what it looks like on the Quest. So you've got the browser there, which is the gallery I was showing before. We've got a play button. Once you play that button, you select if you want to go into AR, VR. AR on a Quest means that you go into the experience with pass-through, and so that all those cubes get teleported into your real world, into your real environment. Once you're in there in VR, you can sort of go and explore. You can scale them up, rotate them, and do whatever you want. Some other things we've sort of been exploring is like how to take these cubes and put them into a mapped space, so like an art gallery exhibition space, and maybe making them multi-user as well, so having lots of people interacting with them at the same time. This is the editor that we've created for the cube format. Oops. I think that's the wrong video, but so it gives you an idea. So you've got the editor, you can sort of drop things in, and one other thing that we sort of added in here, because we've been doing a lot of work in a Web3 space on the blockchain, we've made it so that you can mint these objects, and that's part of the great thing about WebXR. It is an interoperable format, so that it works everywhere. Our co-founder, Sutu, he just created the first artwork on the platform. So this one's available right now, and it's being minted to the Tesla's blockchain. So I'll show this link afterwards, and you guys can I'll leave it up there, and you guys can have a scan and check out the experience. So that's kind of all the WebXR stuff. I just also just want to maybe finish up with a sneak preview of what we're working on right now in the WebXR space. So we're doing a project with Nona Hendricks. It's at the Lincoln Center in New York City. It's a VR experience. It's basically you walk into the space and there's in groups of 20. It's a ticketed event, and then you go in this sort of virtual environment journey, where we have different artists like George Clinton, Laurie Anderson, Vernon Reid, Skin, Bina 48, and Nona Hendricks as well. And yeah, it's a 20-minute experience where you go into this sort of virtual environment, and we're building that currently in Unity. It's a multi-user experience, and yeah, it's built on WebXR. I feel like I'm saying WebXR a lot. Okay, and I'll show you a quick preview of the visuals and the, sort of the behind the scenes of this project. Cool, that's it. Yeah, if you want to scan that QR code and have a look at some WebXR stuff and this artwork, feel free to do so.
Cool. You should stay up for a little bit. See whether anybody's got any questions.
Oh, yeah.
That's probably the right one. Yes. Does anyone have any questions? You can raise your hand. But, yes.
Can you talk a little bit more about exporting from Unity to WebXR, and then also I guess maybe talk a little bit about how you manage not scaring people about like having to write code.
Yeah, cool. Sorry, the first question was
It's basically like just a little bit more about Unity and how you export to WebXR.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah, so with Unity, you just export to WebGL. So it's just one of the build targets you can do. So you can export to iOS, whatever. And WebGL is one of those things you can export to. So it means you can build an experience and it runs in the browser.
Yeah, and then like.
And then the WebXR part. Yeah. So that I think there's like some plugins that from I forget who's made it. I think it might have been Mozilla. Don't quote me on that, but yeah, I think I'm more in the sort of the JavaScript side of things myself. So we other team members have got the project running with WebXR in Unity, but it's like it's just a plugin that you add, and then basically adds the WebXR button to the experience, and then when you launch it, then it goes into AR or VR. Yeah. What was the other question again?
Well, you said you provided some tools for content creators.
Yeah.
So I guess like my background is I'm a lecturer over in Paddington University Art and Design. I have a computer science background, but like my challenge is trying to get non-coders to do stuff within Unity, basically.
Okay.
And I'm just wondering how you approach that issue where like creative people that they don't really know how to code, but they still want to do this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
What's the sugar?
Yeah, well, the editor we're trying to build at the moment is like it's a no-code editor. Well, it actually does support code, but you don't need to do it. But you do need to have some 3D skills at the moment. So we're pretty early in the sort of editor game ourselves. So there's lots of great editors out there. There's loads. But yeah, so right now we've sort of built it on top of the 3JS editor, and we get some things for free. But it means you can drop in like any sort of file format. So you can drop in GLBs, USDZs, all the 3D formats, and then you can once you drop them in, so you maybe use Blender or Maya or whatever else, And then once you've dropped them in, then that we've taken care of the rest of the WebXR layer. So that means that you can, once you've dropped your content in, you can launch it on your desktop, on your mobile, and also the VR headset. So there's no code involved in that process, although there is a way to also code in there if you know how in the editor. Because it's all JavaScript, it's actually very flexible. Because you can, if you know about JavaScript, one thing that we're sort of working on at the moment is like using AI to generate JavaScript, so that so that no coders can actually take advantage of the flexibility, but without having to know any of it. So you'll just text to you'd prompt it to create 1,000 walls falling down, and then that will sort of interpret that and add that bit of code to the scene. So I think that's a way forward for. I'm sure you've seen it hundreds of times, and that's what AI does now. So
Cool, thank you.
Awesome. Any other questions? Yes.
Thanks for the sharing of WebXR, because I've tried to use Unity to do something with AR package, and I realized it's a very heavy loading to you to put a lot of 3D assets in an app. So what's the experience of like having it on WebXR? Will it like get to know for a long time if the 3D model is something that's scanned really detailedly by in the real world?
Cool. Generally Unity is pretty bulky, like when you build it. So just the files, the Unity files can be like, I don't know, around 10 megabytes or something like that, 10, 20 megabytes. So that's one little hurdle that you probably have to sort of get over. So I don't know, you probably have to sort of like design a nice loader or something, because you can't, before you display any content, Unity has to load first. So you've got to make that process look nice and bearable. And then after that, if you're loading big files, it's really up to you how you manage that process. So you can break it up into smaller chunks, perhaps. You could, I don't know, maybe gamify the experience, maybe do something while it's loading. I'm not sure, but it's really up to the creator to make those decisions and how to engage their users.
Cool. One more question. If anybody's got any questions? Is that a hand raising? One sec. I'll break this over so we can hear you.
How's the controller compatibility looking into GGS, WebXR stuff? Because last time I did try GGS stuff and I can't even detect the, what's it called? The joystick part of the Quest 2 controller when I was trying that. Is that not working, or is?
Actually I don't know. I've used the triggers, like we use the triggers predominantly. I haven't used the joystick, but I imagine it would work. No, that's a lie. I've used an experience recently called, it's really good actually, you should check it out. It's called Escape Room, or Escape Art. So the URL is esc.art. But they use the joystick for sort of moving around the scene. So it is supported, yeah.
Yeah, because like last time, I remember trigger is super easy. That's just the first button you can use. But I remember everything else, like the A button, the B button, that wasn't done.
Yeah, right. Not sure why it wasn't working, but
Yeah, probably.
definitely supported that, yeah.
Cool.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Lucas. All right, we'll let Oliver get set up. And in the meantime, what I was going to do, because we hadn't had a chance yet, I wanted to see whether anybody has anything that they need advice or help on. If anybody's looking for somebody to help networking with, like if you've got a project and you're like, I need somebody to help give me guidance on this, or if anybody's looking for anything like that, you can raise your hand and you can come up to the front and take the mic, see whether you can find somebody in the community who knows or could help you out.
Hey guys, I'm Luke. Just more of an announcement, I guess. There's a hackathon going on at the moment from Meta Presence Platform Hackathon. So if anyone has Quest 2 or 3, they want to build like a cool AR app, it's like 50 grand prizes kind of stuff. but it's also just fun. I'm looking for teammates as well, so if you guys want to build something, especially people who have visual experience, like Maya, Blender sort of stuff, that'd be great. But yeah, just thought you guys want to know about that.
That is the perfect announcement. Cool. Anybody else got anything? No? Excellent. Cool. And the other one thing I'll say, just before all we get started, is we're looking for speakers for the next event. So if anybody has anything that you've been building that you'd like to share, if you'd like to get just a bit of your knowledge out there, it doesn't have to be a finished product. It could be something you just built as a prototype that you wanted to share. It could be a university project. You could be somebody who's literally just building tools specifically for AR, and you want to kind of show people how that works. Anything at all that you want to share, get in touch with me as well. And if you've got any questions and you were too worried to kind of say it in front of everybody, you can always get in touch with me later with the email that I had. You can find me on LinkedIn, and we can always try and connect you up as well afterwards if you're kind of looking for advice or help. And with that, I'll pass over to Oliver to give the rest of the night's very exciting news, because everybody wants to find out about Apple Vision Pro, and so you are now the knowledgeable one to answer all those questions. So here's Oliver, everybody.
Good evening, everybody. So, just to give you a bit of a background, my name's Oliver Weidlich. I have a small user experience consultancy here, just around the corner in Surrey Hills. I also have an adjunct position here at Sydney University teaching interaction design as well, so it's nice to be here for this type of thing. Tonight, I just wanted to talk you through our experience, a very recent experience, of preparing an Apple Vision Pro app for launch day for Apple Vision Pro. And it's launched, early last month. So we're a user experience consultancy day to day, focused on user research, strategy and design. So we don't do development traditionally in-house, but I'll talk you through the approach that we took and how we ended up getting to where we did. So just quickly, to narrow in on our particular interest, so day to day we do mobile apps. We did everything from Westpac's mobile banking to Qantas quick check kiosks to new companies for Woolworths and things like that. And we really focused on mobile for a bunch of years. But about 6 years ago, we started to explore augmented reality, and we really wanted to focus in on head-mounted augmented reality. So not through a mobile or through a tablet, but looking at goggles, glasses, HoloLens, devices like that, Oculus, etc., with specific AR capability. And as part of our process, I'd really sort of describe us as explorers more than anything. Like, we were really interested in what was happening around the industry, what headsets were available, and what are of interest to us particularly. And you can see we gather this information and we sort of collate it to help us understand. And so you can see sort of the evolution. And again, these are AR-focused headsets, so the Quest 2 is not there because it's VR only, and it really tracks from the HoloLens 1 through the Magic Leap 1, HoloLens 2, etc. And Magic Leap 2 is a headset that we've used a lot for prototyping and so on. And as UX designers, we also want to be really aware of the capabilities of these headsets and how they're different from what they can do to how users or people can interact with them. So obviously along the top there, we've got Snap Spectacles at the less capable end and the Apple Vision Pro at the top of that. Now the first line under that is looking at one of the key differentiators between these types of headsets, which is optical see-through, where you have glass and the AR image is overlaid on the glass, versus a video pass-through, which is where cameras sit on the outside of the headset and they beam the image from the outside onto screens on the inside, and you get that version, right? So one of the key things you'll notice here is that with the optical see-through, they have a really small field of view because of the nature of that, okay? So what that means to us as designers is that we've got less screen real estate, essentially, to design our experiences on. The other aspect that's critical for UX design is obviously that interaction design aspect. So with the Quest devices, you've got 2 controllers, a bunch of buttons, you've got triggers, you've got all sorts of things, and people get in them and we try and explain which thing to press and they're all a bit confused. Magic Leap was really nice because it reduced the number of controllers down to 1 controller, and it had a touchpad on the top and a trigger button, and then it added another trigger button, and then it added another home button on the Magic Leap 2. And now we've got to the Vision Pro, which doesn't have any of those devices, and we're moving to a much more natural user interaction. And I'll talk through that as we go. We're also lucky enough that we've been working with a PhD researcher here at Sydney University, Tran, and she's been great. We'll give her a topic, she'll go away, she'll look through the academic research around this particular topic, samples of what we have there, and bring that back and collate it back to my team so that we can understand and appreciate. Because a lot of the work that's gone into AR, head-mounted display augmented reality, is really based on a lot of research. The SydAR, the tracking, inside-out tracking, etc. Like, there's a lot of scientific research, and my background's originally in human-computer interaction psychology, that leads into these subjects. Understanding of how the body works, especially things like the eye and the embodiment of computing and so on. And lucky enough, we were lucky enough last year to actually publish a co-author a paper. Shane at the back is one of the lead authors on that paper, between Contxtual, Sydney University, and the guru, the Australian New Zealand guru that is Mark Billinghurst, who's pretty much been involved in every major AR/VR paper over the last bunch of years. Now, in the lead up to June last year, when Apple launched the Apple Vision Pro, we were sort of speculating on what they might be doing. And we expected at the time that they were doing an optical see-through device. And we came up with all these scenarios, and we had a great time using different types of prototyping to bring those experiences to life. Some of them were just mock-ups in a 2D sense. Some of them we did video prototyping for. Some of them we actually got onto, like the Magic Leap 2, and created a Unity prototype, leveraging the Magic Leap 2's ability to do gaze tracking and voice interaction and gestures as well. And so we built up this range of assets, and really it's been us over a couple of years workshopping ideas, trying to understand use cases, because again, as UX people, we really want to bound a lot of this in user need and behavior to drive these types of interactions. We're lucky enough that we do have a bunch of these headsets in the office, so they're lots of fun to play with, and we get to try these devices hands-on and see the limitations or the strengths of them as we go through. So then, as you know, in June last year, Apple announced the Apple Vision Pro, and we had Tim Cook described it as the first complete computer that you look through, not at. And that is a real change for how people engage with computing. Like, if we think back across the different eras of computing, we started with these massive computers that took up a whole room, had this very expert level way of interacting with them through punch cards. We then moved to sort of the desktop PC, and we had a command line, and that was complex, but the computers were getting smaller, more accessible. Then we had the Macintosh with the GUI and the mouse that made it more open and accessible again to a whole range of different people. And then the mobile phone and the smartphone with Apple iPhone and obviously Android devices as well, where computing essentially came with us most of the places that we went. And now we have devices like the Apple Watch and Google Fit watches and so on, which don't only tell us about what's going on outside, but understand the context so much they can actually tell us what's going on inside our bodies as well, with things like heart rate and so on. And so computing is getting closer to us, and as we have with these types of devices, we now don't even have to hold them up. We can get that insight into and overlay digital content into the real world. So Apple frames this up in 3 different ways of sort of presenting user interfaces. In Windows, and the best way of thinking of that is just taking a flat screen and presenting it in the world. One of the things that the Vision Pro does is actually allows you to use all the apps that you used, or the apps you might use today, straight away. So when I go to work, I might open my mail, my calendar, Notion, Slack, all those types of apps, and I can have them there straight away. They're working pretty much out of the box. Some of them as iPad versions of the app, or some of them as native apps. Now that was kind of interesting to us. And then on the other end of the spectrum, you've got spaces. And these are these large environments where only a single app runs at once compared to the shared space, which is windows and volumes. And in the spaces experience, you can control a lot more things. You can leverage ARKit so that you can do plane detection, so you can identify the surface of a table or the floor or ceiling or an object and things like that. And you can also do things like custom gestures and so on. Now I wanted to come back to volumes because that's the area that was of most interest to us. We really believe in this concept of spatial computing, in that you can go to a work environment and arrange things in your work environment throughout a physical space, and I'll show you a video of this at the end, that works for you, okay? So that might be a combination of 2D screens, but we were really interested in the opportunities around volumes in particular, because it was a real new thing to take advantage of. The gestures in the shared space, so where you can have those windows and volumes, have a real simple range of interactions, right? So essentially you can tap, double tap, pinch and hold, pinch drag, as you can see there, do some very simple things. But what that means is that people can adopt this interaction really quickly. It's very easy to explain and it doesn't take long to pick it up. So our approach around this, we had a bunch of aims that we wanted to achieve. First of all, we wanted to add utility to the spatial computing experience. We were never going to build a word processor. We were never going to build a big game. We wanted to find something small and achievable that we could add value to people's spatial computing experience. So it had to be small and simple from a time and effort perspective and cost. As I said, we wanted to use volumetric. And we think that in your spatial computing experience, you want to have beautiful objects, right? They shouldn't be ugly grey boxes and sitting there and you want to hide them away. They should be things that you find pleasant to have in your environment. We wanted to create our own app literally for the first time, although we've worked on hundreds of apps for other people. This was the first app that we've released. And we wanted to also explore those different development paths, and I'll talk through those in a moment. Because of our time frame, etc., we wanted to leverage Apple APIs. We didn't have any services ourselves that we were trying to bundle in, and we especially didn't want to store customer data or sit in the middle between the customer and this service for security, privacy reasons, etc. I'm going to call on Shane again because while he's a DesComp student from University of Sydney, he's been a UX consultant for 8 years, but over the last couple of years he's been exploring Swift UI. And so over the course of this, and we'll talk through it a bit more, he stepped up and ended up doing a lot of the development with help from Jun as well. I just want to add another little thing. So there's probably very few of us in the room who might understand remember what the original Macintosh operating system was like. But what they did when they first created the Mac was they could only run a single app at a time. As bizarre as that might sound these days. You could only have, your Photoshop or your Word open at that time. But what some of the engineers at Apple found out was that they could actually run these mini apps between the lines of code, essentially, of the bigger app, where they could do little tricky things. So things like a notepad, things like a puzzle, things like a calculator. And they called these things desk accessories. Okay, and we've really adopted that term and leveraged that. And the Apple Vision Pro at the moment is a very high-end device, obviously. So we've called them desk accessories to leverage that. And we're moving away from the metaphorical desktop, and we're now going to the literal desktop of you are sitting at a desk, and what can you put on that desk or around that spatial computing workspace that can benefit you. So app one. We explored 3 different paths. So we used Swift UI, and Shane led this path, where we were looking at that volumetric approach. Again, we parked the Windows one. It wasn't particularly of interest to us. We still do use 2D windows in the onboarding and things like that, but we wanted to focus on the volumetric aspect. We had Jan, who was focused on a single app experience of the same app. Okay, so we were duplicating the app, but looking at the pros and cons to each of the development paths. So he could leverage things like ARKit specifically. And then because we built this type of app for the Magic Lake 2 in Unity, we could then explore what porting it across from Unity into the Apple Vision Pro using the polyspatial plugin was like as well. So we started down this path and we got those all to a certain level. This is sort of a bit of an example. You can see sort of this is a rough placement sort of mock-up of these boxes. Not aesthetically beautiful yet, but you can see the controller there from the Magic Leap 2 rotating them and placing them. And then we had eye gaze. So as you looked at each one, something would happen based on which one you were looking at, and then you could use the gesture to pinch and select. And in fact, you could say yellow and it would turn on yellow as well. So it was a multimodal interface through this, through the Magic Leap 2.
Hey, Magic Leap, stop recording.
Who worked on the Unity stuff. So we were playing around with this because simply we didn't have access to an Apple Vision Pro, right? This was mid last year after the Apple Vision Pro had been announced. And we played with 3D user interface elements as well and tools to explore materials and so on, and to look at animation as well. So Enrique from our team played around with a lot of this. And more importantly, obviously, as UX researchers and designers, we got people into our office, designers and developers, to experience the little prototypes. We've created a bunch of these prototypes to experience those and to ask them about what their expectations were from a device like the Apple Vision Pro or spatial computing more broadly. Now, this app path was going down a particular way, and then unfortunately we found out that that API wasn't available ultimately. So after we'd gone to a couple of these sessions, we actually had to change path. And that brings us to app 2, which we'd sort of started in parallel because we wanted to have this little set of desk accessories, but it quickly accelerated its importance for us. So we went back in, we sketched a bunch of stuff up in workshops amongst the team with Yin and Enrique and Shane, myself. And we started to look at this idea and sort of define what ended up becoming the utility that we created. And whiteboarding and all that sort of stuff as good designers. And then Yin did some great work in Figma in bringing some of those 2D screens together. And I think what we really find at the moment is that we're very early on in this process or that workflow of from design to development. And it's at the stage where the industry as a whole is still, creating and experimenting with different types of applications in the design process. So Figma is great for 2D stuff, for some of the background screens and things like that, the onboarding stuff. But for 3D, it doesn't really support that well. So we were looking at applications like Spline and Bezier, and in the past we've looked at WebXR, etc., to see how we could utilize those and create the objects. Shane jumped into Reality Composer Pro, and I think one afternoon we were going, I was like, look, it has to be beautiful and this lovely glassy tube, and Shane's like, I don't think we can do that. And then the next day he came back and said, yeah, I've done that. So that was good. And then the icon design path, I went and spent much time on that. And we were lucky enough to attend a number of the Apple Vision Pro labs. So we were heading up to speak at a conference, augmented reality conference in Singapore last year in September. So we were able to attend the Singapore Dev Labs up there. So that's where you go in as developers. A couple of us went in as a team, and you get to use the Apple Vision Pro yourself and install your application on it. A couple of months later, because that was the closest one that we had, the Singapore one, and then a couple of months later, Apple announced that there were Sydney labs. So if anyone is working on an Apple Vision Pro app, I would strongly suggest that you go and apply to play with those devices, because obviously it's just not available in Australia yet, and doing these things on device is so much better than the simulator. It's not fun. So we attended a number of those to evolve our process, and of course in early February 1st, Apple launched this device in the US with 600 apps, and we were lucky enough to have ours in there for launch. So we've called it Day Ahead, and it's simply this glass capsule that you can place anywhere in your spatial computing workspace. A couple of things that we try to bring in. So one of the things you realize quite quickly after putting the Apple Vision Pro on is that there's no clock in there, okay? So given this was a scheduling utility, we wanted to have a clock right there. Then the glass tube itself, the capsule, is as long as your day is. So you can set your day to start at 7 a.m. and finish at 7 p.m, or you could start Wednesdays at 6 a.m. and finish at 2 or whatever. But that length is that length of your day. And then that ring, that silver ring in this case, shows you where you are in the day. So what the current time is in relation to that. And then those light blue bubbles that you see are the meetings that you've got. So you've gone into Apple Calendar, you've set up that meeting, and it just appears in this glass tube for you. And of course you can click on that glass tube and you can find out a bit more information about that. And then a settings icon at the end to nicely balance out. Now that settings icon in itself is really interesting for us from a UX design perspective, because the interaction with these objects is so simple to start with. As I said, there's only pinch or tap, double tap, pinch and hold, that we wanted to keep it super simple for new users of this device because it had just been launched. So we didn't want to hide settings behind anything else, so we wanted to expose it to start with. And I'll talk a bit more about something, how we're looking at changing that later. So this is what it looks like in the simulator. You can change the colors of the events, you can change the color of the ring, and then when you look, you gaze and tap on one of those, you can get a bit more information, and in fact you can tap on that label to get the full calendar view on that particular event. This shows what your calendar might be like on the left and how that's reflected in the tube. So it's just taking your calendar information and visualizing it, and that's the settings screens on the right. So you can have it horizontal or vertical, you can change the colors, you can adjust the times and so on. But it's very simple in its utility. So there's a vertical version. And the idea is that you place it somewhere in your spatial computing environment and you can reference it easily. So we launched it and we got some great responses from some of the larger Mac sites, and I kept, every now and then I'd be sitting there listening to a podcast and somebody, Mike Hurley, would go, oh, you can use this day ahead thing and it's awesome. And that was really good. It was amazing. And this is exactly, it was very rewarding for us because this is exactly the type of thing we were hoping to achieve. So that was lovely. And then things started happening. And I was like, oh, I'm pretty sure I had it open, but maybe I closed it before I put the head, or we were testing the headset's still early, maybe it didn't work. And then over time I was like, oh, I don't know, I'm pretty sure I had it open. Because the idea is it stays in your spatial computing space, right? You don't want to set this up every time you go in. And then we started seeing the reports on the App Store. Now you have to remember, we didn't have a headset, right? These were the early days of the App Store. It was really tricky to try and understand what some of these things were happening. So we went through and Shane did a lot of work in trying to work it out, and unfortunately when we did get a headset it got a bit faster, but then we'd have these breaks in the tools. But we got an editorial pick, so that was really great, and we ended up resolving those bugs obviously, so we've solved that now.
Now, Fantastical isn't the only calendar app I use on Vision Pro. There's an app called Day Ahead that I've been using. And Day Ahead is a really interesting app. Instead of having like a window like you would traditionally do for an app, this just has a 3D tube. And inside it are your calendar events. So you can see your events and when they will be happening. You can see where you currently are and how far along your events are. You can then look and select an event and it'll show you all the details for it. This is a really clever app. I absolutely love playing with this. For a digital 3D environment, I think this is a really clever way of showing calendar events. It's a simple looking app, I'll totally admit to that, but I think a lot of really good native Vision OS apps aren't trying to be these big complex UIs that you would see on something like the Mac. They're just simple utilities that you can just interact with, they do a particular thing, and then you can move on.
So that was, again, I was just sitting watching Chris Lawley's YouTube video about iPads and that popped up and I was like, oh, cool. Now, our next app, which is going to come out soon, we're not going to talk too much about it, but I want to show you one of the advantages of volumetric, specifically over 2D. So this is in our office, and you can see what happens because you move around a lot in a spatial computing environment. With a 2D window, it just disappears, right? Whereas I can have this glass tube anywhere in our office and I can reference it. I can see it and I can immediately pull it to where I am in the office, whether I'm right up the back in the meeting room or in the front area there as well. So that's one of the little advantages. And then I was at a client's today, and I wanted to show them the type of experience. And you have to remember that you can spatially anchor all these windows and objects around in our case, the office. So I wanted to do a little walkthrough. This is another app called Glance Bar, which is good too. And you can't do multiple versions of one app yet. But I'll be sitting in the chair at the front of the office. I might look at, obviously Fahrenheit temperature, but what are my next appointments, etc. I might then look at a Notion document, review that, and then I'll have a look at what's going on in Slack, and I might want to read a particular article that I see. So then I can tap on that article, it bumps up in Safari, and I can have a quick read of that article. I might then go, I've got to collaborate on something. Obviously this is a very contrived walkthrough, but you get the picture. And I might have all the images of the UIs that we're working on or something. And I can simply grab one of those images and then drag it in and take it into maybe the meeting room where we're doing a whiteboarding session with Freeform or something like that. Now the image was already there, but pretend I put it there because it's the same, etc. And then we can sort of collaborate with either remote people or potentially in the future collaborate in the same room with these headsets on as well, and rearrange the content, explore the content. I might go, okay, well, I need to actually reference a web page here, or I want to look at a prototype that we've done before, so I'm just looking at another instance of Safari. You can have multiple instances of Safari open in the Vision Pro. Then I might importantly need to turn on the light in a meeting room, because that's very important that happens at that time. But that's an example of IoT reaching through to the physical world. And then I want to go and get some work done at my computer, and we've got a day ahead there. Okay, so you can have these little setups of experiences that you move between, and obviously that was accelerated, but that's how I do things during the day when I've got the headset on. We've now conducted 80 sessions with people of demonstrating the Apple Vision Pro to them in our office, and over those 80 sessions, it's been fascinating to see a whole range of behaviours emerge, or different types of behaviours. But as I said before, it's quite interesting to see how quickly people can pick up this interaction of being able to gaze at something and then use that gesture to interact with that, and to zoom in, zoom out, pan around. They can adopt it, like the sessions are usually half an hour, and certainly by 5-10 minutes in, most of them have got the hang of it and are just moving through content. So it's an amazing device. I strongly recommend that if you get the chance, and I suppose this is the opportunity because we have one, if anyone does want to come and play with it, please let me know and we'll try and schedule you in. Tomorrow I go to Beijing, and there's a big Vision OS conference on over there, so I'm presenting there as well. But these things are really starting to take off in terms of the content that's being created. We do a range of work in the health space through the usual UX UI work that we do, but a lot of this, the high-end medical right through to consumer tech stuff is happening in the Vision Pro. Apple put out a page probably about 2 weeks ago showcasing a whole bunch of high-end applications for the Vision Pro. We were at Prince of Wales Hospital the other day showing them some of this, and at eHealth New South Wales and so on. So these things are starting to pick up, and of course we expect that when Apple announce that these devices will be in Australia, that there will be a market for that as well. So that's it from me. Any questions?
Thank you very much for that. It was great. I was reading something earlier today about content performance, and how does content performance differ when running on the Apple Vision Pro compared to other headsets?
Sure. So firstly, I think if you wanted to do same content on different headsets, you'll get a much higher performance from the Apple Vision Pro. But then you also need to look at the type of content that the Apple Vision Pro can showcase in terms of spatial video, things like that the others can't do in nearly the same way. The screens that are in these devices are very high resolution, super fast refresh. So yeah, the content's phenomenal. So and there's, it's that tricky thing of the device has just been launched, so there's a whole bunch of sample content for it at the moment, but there's a bunch of old content you can use in terms of 3D movies. It's probably the best 3D movie experience that you can have. But we expect that over time more content will be created specifically for this device as well.
Thanks for the talk. Can you speak a bit more about how to design or how to think about UX in spatial computing as compared to traditional mediums? Like, how do you kind of get away from the thinking of, we have a web page and we click on things, and also how do people respond to that when they first try it?
Yeah, sure. The first one I think is quite interesting because we do have to reset our thinking. We're seeing apps being ported across from other VR headsets, and that kind of makes sense in some ways, but they're not adopting the interaction pattern, so that's great. So what we've sort of said is we want to rethink it. And for those of you who might be in the UX industry for a period, what happened probably about 15 years ago was the industry sort of bifurcated into user experience design and service design. Service design was all about the bigger physical design of spaces and processes and things like that. And I think what's interesting is that spatial computing brings some of those elements back together, where you need to think about the physical space that person is in. There was a great talk at South by Southwest by Agatha Yu and KG from Liquid City and Michelle from Meta, who talk about the embodiment of computing, and that when you are in a spatial computing experience, things like your height make a difference in how you relate to content, right? The positioning of things, the size of things, how can my hands grab something that's like that, or so on. So you do need to reset, and that's a process, and it's kind of fun because it resets you have to redefine a whole bunch of those experiences and come back to those needs and behaviours of the audience that you're trying to solve. There's one super thing that we are always conscious of, is that we don't want to throw tech at a problem, right? Like, that's not what we're trying to do. But you also need to understand a technology to see how that you can use it in a tool set to address a need, right? So there's particular scenarios where it just doesn't make sense to have a mobile phone and waving it around and trying to get a little viewport on an experience, right? Now, we also have to face the fact that this is a very rare device, it's a very expensive device, and not everyone's going to be wandering around, certainly not wandering around outside with these things on, right? So, but we see this as very much as a start. It's a significant step change in the quality of the experience of these devices. And that it's only going to get lighter, smaller, better from here, and that one day we'll probably move to an optical see-through type of device. And in fact, in China at the moment, companies like Oppo are creating some really interesting glasses-based AR headsets that connect to your phone and things like that. So that stuff's going on as well. Does that sort of answer? And then the second part of the question was one that I felt like I couldn't answer. It was like...
So just how do people respond to your experiences? Yeah, like, do they default to wanting to do the actions that they know, or are they instantly reaching, grabbing stuff and all that?
It's very fast. Feel free to come in and experience it yourself. What tends to happen is that people try to directly manipulate the object in their field of view, because you usually start with the icon menu, right? So they tend to reach out and tap. And so we generally let them do that, right? Because you don't want to interrupt them too much. But over the course, you'll say, actually, you can just put your hand down on the table or in your lap and you can tap from there. It's this expectation of direct manipulation like you do on your smartphone. Over the course of the session, probably about 10% just end up going back up to that, but the rest of them sort of adopt it. And some of them, we have a range of experiences. The device that we have, there's a number of different face shapes. So when you purchase the device, you need to scan your face and it gets a fitting mask for you. We haven't seen many, even though we've just got one, we haven't seen many issues with light leakage. We've only had one person who, after about 10 minutes, said, oh look, I'm not feeling well, but out of 80 people, that's a significant improvement on other headsets. But the interactions they pick up really quickly. It's conceptually, initially they conceptually don't understand that what they're looking at is a key part of the interaction, because they're used to looking at something, then doing something to act on that, and in this case it's you're making that selection with your eyes and then triggering that selection. So but they adapt very quickly.
Cool. We actually have questions from people online too, which is very cool. So Adrian said, thanks Oliver for the presentation. I've got one question. Day ahead looks great. What's next for the Apple Vision Pro potentially for your team and its connectivity with IoTs?
Okay. So one of the aspects, the next app that you kind of saw a preview of and we were supposed to launch in China is like almost simple. Well, it is simpler than the day ahead app that we did, and it's a battery indicator. And it's one of these things, like you saw in that video, is there's lava lamp battery indicators, which are these, aesthetically they don't appeal to me. They're these simple 2D battery indicators that I can't see from any angle. So I went, we've got a tube. Shane's like, yep, we can knock that up. We've got all the elements, let's put them together in a different way. So we're launching that on the weekend, so that's the next app for us. One of the things that we did do with the Magic Leap 2 was hook in the augmented reality headset with Internet of Things, specifically through HomeKit, again, very much in the Apple ecosystem for all of these things. But it allowed us to control a HomePod Mini and allowed us to control a light, like we saw in that video. And when the Apple Vision Pro launched, we saw that somebody else had launched that light. So that might have been something we were interested in doing, but we'll leave that to other people. There's a lot of complexity behind that. So, but we are very strong believers in that tie-in between augmented reality, spatial computing, and the Internet of Things, especially in a home environment or in a work environment.
Awesome. And one other question online, then we'll go back to real life humans who are here. Bo Jensen said, thank you for the presentation. One question, how mature is accessibility on AR devices? Vision Pro offers prescription lenses from Zeiss, but quite a few people can't get lenses that work for them. The navigation is gesture-based, but are there alternative input options if one is missing a hand, etc.?
Great question, Bo. So, a couple of aspects to that. We're going to go through them in order. Sorry, can you repeat that for me, Pat?
So, first one, how mature is accessibility? And talk about the prescription lenses not being able to...
Okay, let's do the prescription lenses, then we'll come back to accessibility. So I have a very light prescription. In fact, we probably don't need these on. And I use it mainly for in front of a computer and reading my mobile phone and things like that. So I have them on most of the time, but it's like a plus 0.25, right? So it's super light. The interesting thing about the Apple Vision Pro is that the focal distance when you have the headset on is actually 1.3 meters, right? So I don't use the lenses. I've got the lenses. I don't use the lenses in the day-to-day use of the Apple Vision Pro. Everything is super clear to me. The digital content is very high resolution, and I just don't need them. The time that I do need them is when I connect my MacBook and I bring my MacBook screen up in the Vision Pro experience, because then that's back to a computing screen essentially. So then I'll put the lenses in. So that's one question tick. Then we'll go to accessibility. So again, as you can probably tell, we're quite pro Apple, and Apple has historically built in a lot of aspects of accessibility. The other day we had some partners come in who are an accessibility consultancy, and we're looking at doing a combined project which is exploring the accessibility aspects of this in more detail. One of the individuals who came doesn't really have doesn't have strong use of one of her eyes, and so she went through the experience. But then we went back in and we explored the accessibility settings, and there is actually one you can turn on. So if you only have one eye or the use of one eye, you can set it to define that. If you don't have the use of your limbs, or you have something like a tremor or something like that, you can actually set it so that you only use your vision. So they use what's called the dwell time. So instead of just looking at something and then tapping, I can look at it and I keep that gaze on the same thing, and then it will trigger an action. I've set up in ours that when I go, it brings up the home menu. So you can set up sound triggers and things like that to prompt interaction. So we've only done a little exploration through that accessibility menu. There's a lot more for us to discover, and we're intrigued by that. For those of you who are interested in accessibility for the Apple Vision Pro, I also strongly recommend you check out Reality Check from Christian Diaz in Berlin. He'll be speaking in China with me on the weekend, but he's got a open source project which interrogates things like volumetric UI elements and so on for their accessibility properties, so you can sort of improve the accessibility of your interaction or your elements in your apps and things like that. Does that tick all the boxes?
I think it does. That's awesome. I love that there is actual thought already done for accessibility, which of course Apple are amazing at. All right, any other questions? Last chance, all good? All right, thank you so much. Oh, that was amazing. There was plenty of info. Connect my laptop to the tiny last bit, and then we'll wrap up so everybody can make their way home and get things going. All right. That's all right. Firstly, thank you again, everybody, for being here. The very first time we've ever done this in person, we had no idea how many people were actually going to show up and want to be in person at an event and actually be out in the real world again. So it's good to see everybody here actually wanting to mingle and meet people. If you do want to speak next month, get in touch with me. It can be sending me an email, it can be over Twitter, it can be over LinkedIn. Whichever way suits you. You can go through meetup.com as well if you'd like. But I'd be keen for anybody who's around Sydney and you want to speak and you've got something cool to share. There are tons of people in Sydney I know that have been doing some very cool stuff. We've just scratched the surface with both EyeJack and Contxtual. And yeah, thank you all for being here. I'm going to try and send over Meetup a survey, a very short one, but I just want to see what things people actually would like us to do as well in future. So I'd love to do things like having hackathons, having more things where we just kind of all get together and just share ideas. If there are specific things you'd like to know about and you'd like me to try and find a speaker, if there are specific people that you'd really like to speak, even if it's just we have to like get somebody from America, dial them in over Zoom, and get them to speak and kind of we can ask them questions. So anything like that, when I send out the survey link, I'll even just have like one section which is blank, which is like say whatever you want, tell me whatever you want, because I'd really like to know what everybody here wants from these events as well. So if there's stuff that you really like, people you really like, topics you really like covered, things that you would like us to have in person that you haven't had before or you've experienced elsewhere, or you've seen other people in like America doing cool stuff at other events and meetups and you'd like us to do it here, let me know. And then we'll try and kind of keep building this and making this grow in the way that everybody actually would like it to be. And with that, thank you all for being here and see you next time.